live. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone, with the Mighty Ducks. I know that's a duck shirt on. But good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. And the big reason why I'm doing so great, Blake, we're at that time of year. And I know that bowl games, by the way, before I get into this, I know bowl games don't have the same luster and shine that they usually do for competitiveness. But I love that we get to this spot of the year where it's early and there's just football games on and we can just chill and have a game on in the background. We can sit down and watch a game. The next couple of weeks are immaculate, and we especially know that this weekend is going to be freaking awesome. I don't know about you. I'm watching this JMU Western Kentucky game, and it's I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for some of these big teams and guys that have bigger programs that are probably not in the playoff, you get to see where they're at the current moment without the players that they're adding in the portal. Right. So I think that there are a couple of teams that we're going to talk about tonight, USC being one of them, LSU, Brent being one of them. Some of these other teams that we're going to discuss here tonight. What does Colorado look like, right? Like now they have a new guard and changeover. We're going to talk about Colorado tonight. Duke, I got some spicy stuff for you on Duke and Mensa. Sounds like Duke's got money. Sounds like Duke's paying players. So we'll go from there. And then Auburn, okay, potentially getting Singleton now with quarterbacks. So it's interesting to see where a lot of these teams, a lot of these places, and a lot of these guys are going. I think it makes it very much more – I don't care about wins and losses. I want to just watch and see what you look like. The wins and losses in bowl season really don't bother me. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I'm the same. I don't really think that the outcome of the game really means much, but what you just talked about, there's always a new lens to watch these games in. We're not exposed to high-flying impact starters, and we were slowly trending away from that before the transfer portal with guys just straight up opting out of the games. But to get to see some freshmen and get to see some backups play, that's where it's compelling, is getting to know, hey, could this guy step up? Could this guy have a big year next year? There's a lot to track. There's also guys that are before they enter the portal that you maybe didn't know much about are playing in these games and then are expected to transfer to a bigger program. There's plenty of scouting that can occur for some of these fans of these bigger teams.
Well, and it's big for news and probably where we need to start off tonight's conversation because Diego Pavia at the current moment is scheduled to be back for Vandy, winning his case on the redshirt and JUCO rule. Joe, let's get to Diego Pavia here to open it up. So at the time being, okay, he's got the injunction in the court system for the NCAA, but it would appear that Diego Pavia is going to be returning for Vandy next year. I guess your thoughts on the news breaking today that Diego Pavia is coming back for Vandy.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to understand like the full legal scope of things.
I don't understand it either.
Right. I don't know if anything could come into to slow this down from actually going through. The precedent that it could create if it does eventually becoming a reality is significant for any player that does choose to play and go play JUCO. But for Vanderbilt's sake, him coming back is huge. He is an experienced player. He is a headache for every single team that they faced off against. He was an upset machine, and they didn't upset every single team that they went against, but he made a lot of games closer than they should have been. They won games against the back end of the SEC, which is something that doesn't usually happen for Vandy. I've been a fan of Clark Lee since he was Notre Dame's defensive coordinator. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens this upcoming season if he does end up starting and this does end up staying a reality. But it's amazing. Vanderbilt being competitive and him being the focal point of it has been a very interesting and fun story to keep track of.
It's going to be interesting to see how teams react to Vandy, knowing what they're going to do now in a new year. I think teams kind of caught on at the end of the season why they kind of sputtered. Pavia was hurt a little bit too. But now my man's got to go to Tuscaloosa, right? I mean, which Tuscaloosa has their own problems right now. But, yeah, he's got to go to Tuscaloosa and what will be a revenge game. So, look, it's big for Vandy. And you like seeing stuff like this. Like, listen, I don't in the age right now of college football, 5 years ago, we were so black and white on every single thing that happened. And if Diego Pavia got screwed during COVID, Okay, well, then he needs to play, right? Like, I mean, now if he's 26, 27 years old, all right, it's time to move on. I think there needs to be a limit here.
Yeah.
But there is a court case that's out there that players should be allowed to play in college until they graduate. And that classifications technically should be done with. If they fall in the legal status of their university, then they should be able to play. I understand that, Joe, because here's the problem that you have if you're a player. I've been to college. You've been to college.
Mm-hmm.
I changed majors. I don't know if you did. It took me an extra year, right? Like, it took me an extra year to graduate. Like, what if I went in there wanting to be a coach and then or a teacher, and I got there and I'm like, screw this. I don't want to do that anymore. You're then, as an athlete, held to the standard of that you can't change because your credit hours fall so low, right? And so that becomes an issue for guys. So, look, this is great for college football that the kids getting to come back. It's another storyline. Look, man, what's the big deal? That's the whole point that I was trying to make, and clearly a judge agreed with that sentiment. On the field for me, man, I think that when you can get an experienced quarterback back, it's always going to be a big deal.
Well, just one, not correction, but adjustment to what you said. This is, I think, more to do with – I don't think it has a lot to do with just like the general eligibility scope of things.
It's a completely different case. Just
right.
Right.
To clarify for listeners, this has a lot more to do with guys that go and play JUCO ball before they start playing college football. This does not, I don't believe it would theoretically apply for guys that start their college clock and then go to JUCO and then come back. It's the same argument of if a player goes to a prep school, that is what his whole argument that he's trying to base this off of is that he played ball that was not a part of the NCAA. It should not count towards his years of eligibility. That's what's so significant about this, that there are so many guys in the sport of college football that didn't develop as early. Part of me wonders how this impacts JUCO. Part of me wonders if like JUCO programs get an easier capability to recruit players by saying to said players, why would you go to an FCS school when you can save your eligibility and then after you develop, you can get a bag and then you can go on to play at an SEC school, or you can go on to play at a Big Ten school, whatever it might be. I wonder how that affects things, but this does really shift and adjust things for, the world of these JUCO guys.
Yeah, listen, man, I really do believe that it could shift some things, but again, we're in such a new world of college football that I think that things are impacted and things change. So listen, I get to a place where Diego Pavia coming back is a big deal for Vandy. It's a big deal for the SEC. And Joe, what happens if they upset somebody again? You know, what if they are able to be better than 6-6 that they were this year? We'll have to wait and see. So look, we'll also get to our playoff picks tonight. I am going with a massive upset. I'm sure that some fans in here are not going to be happy with it, but it is what it is. And then we'll talk about the portal, some teams trending. We'll start off with that. And then some players that are going to some significant spots. We'll get to that as well here too. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, we are going to be talking about all those things, so stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. All right. Joe, I hate to start off the show in the big segments here talking about negative, so I want to go with some of the positive things first. Teams that are really doing well in the portal, and then we'll get to USC, right? I mean,
oh, I'm so sad. I really wanted to start with USC.
I know, but I'd rather start off with something positive here. But Joe, the portal's been open now for coming up on 2 weeks, and we have a lot of teams that are doing really good. Ole Miss, LSU, Texas Tech, and others. I guess when you start looking at the portal and what has been going on the last 2 weeks, how do you see what's been going on in college football in the portal, in the early portal window?
Yeah, right now we're starting to get a lot of commitments, and my attention was really drawn to what Colorado is already doing. We know that Colorado lives off of attracting top transfer portal talent. And yesterday or 2 days ago, maybe they pulled Jaheim Otis from Alabama, a guy that I was really intrigued by when I watched his tape over the summer. He is a very gifted athlete, was not able to get into the mix at Alabama. And I think that he is extremely underrated to contribute and to play very well for Colorado. One of the things that we talked about with Colorado and that we discussed with the Big 12, Blake, is that there is a void of talent, especially along offensive lines. To have a guy that is as physically gifted as him to step into the mix can be extremely, extremely disruptive for Colorado going up against every single team in the Big 12. But where my attention really peaked today was when they got Kaidon Salter. And I was texting with somebody about this, and I thought, wow, this is really crazy that they're going from Shedeur Sanders, who was phenomenal, to Kaidon Salter, and then Juju Lewis, who Salter and Juju Lewis are very similar style players and have very similar just physical profiles, that they get to go in this lineage of just tremendous quarterback talent. I really wouldn't be surprised, and we said this before knowing where Kaidon Salter went, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of this year, this upcoming season, that he isn't in that conversation of maybe being a late first-round pick, early second-round pick, or even higher than that. He's a gifted athlete. He is going to be huge for this team in 2025. It is always a smart pick, I think, going forward to put Colorado in the conversation and win the Big 12, and the momentum is definitely in their direction.
Look, Kaidon Salter got a lot of SEC looks here. I mean, listen, I know of 2 SEC teams that really wanted him. I don't know why Auburn didn't make sense to him with going back with his old head coach. But it's not just Kaidon Salter, Joe, that I'm looking at here. They also got Jaheim Otis. Mm-hmm. And Jaheim Otis, the defensive tackle from Alabama, also was regarded in the SEC, and teams in the SEC wanted him. So, listen, you might not have, if you're Colorado and Deion, you might not have the roster of a Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, etc. But you are getting your fair share of those caliber of athletes. I do think their philosophy's got to change, though. And that's the only thing. If you want to take that next step of greatness, brother, you're replacing the Heisman Trophy winner. That's a lot to replace in and of itself. You're replacing a quarterback that went into year 2 at Colorado. That's a big deal in and of itself. Where portal quarterbacks like Cam Ward can come in and do ungodly things, Salter can and probably will do that in the Big 12. He lit up a lot of people. He lit up a lot of teams. Joe, we saw him against Oregon before his team was decimated by the portal. Brother, he went off. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's not like that he's pedestrian in what he needs to do here. It's a really good pickup, more than a good pickup. It's a great pickup by Colorado. But I think and stay with me here, there's no position bigger than quarterback. I'm with that. I think the bigger thing for me is landing a guy like Jaheim Otis due to the fact that I know that SEC teams were after him. I know that Colorado did what they had to do to be able to get him. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And Jaheim Otis went there. There's a difference in getting a big-time quarterback like him based off the system that you run and the receivers that you're recruiting. It's a completely different thing here when you're getting SEC DTs. That's a game changer for you because Jaheim Otis can come in there and be an outright game changer for you. So talking about Colorado specifically, talking about what they've done in the portal, and Deion ain't done. But baby, Deion ain't done. I mean, he gonna continue to do this portal thing. He gonna wind up having 25 of them by the end of this. You know it, and I know it. He keeps doing it. So I mean, look, they're gonna be another one of those top classes that you got to watch out for. Thing is, I think they need to continue to get better along the offensive line. I think that they have done good in some areas. They've neglected it a little bit. But Joe, here's the thing: they got to go run the football too. You want to take that next step, you got to learn how to run the football. You can't be 130th in rushing yards. That's just the bottom line with them.
I was really high on Augustive towards the end of the season, and I think that his role and his impact is going to continue to expand. He's a super underrated player. He could be one of the best running backs in the Big 12 this upcoming year. I do wonder if they try to bolster their offensive line a little bit more. They had big improvements last season by bringing in some more talented players, but we recognized this last offseason and we've recognized it this year, and a lot of people have recognized it this year. Shedeur Sanders still faced a lot of pressures, and there were still a lot of outside of Seton. There were still a lot of miscues and misfirings and a lot
and
of –
that's a true freshman.
Right. Seton was a true freshman, so he's certainly the cornerstone at left tackle for them. But if they can pull one of the top 10, top 15 tackles or interior linemen in this class – I don't know who, if they're necessarily in the mix for anybody that high. That's to me where this really starts to take that extra step forward, because like you talked about, having an SEC defensive lineman is so significant. For anyone who wants to hate on that for Colorado, feel free to. It's meaningless. It is hard to get SEC defensive linemen to come play in the Big 12. It is very hard.
I'll tell you. There were A&M, LSU, and Florida all wanted Otis. LSU desperately wanted him, and he's with the Young Money Agency. Mm-hmm. Lil Wayne was literally sitting at the Heisman Trophy. You can put right. Context clues together on how this thing works. Who's representing Hunter? Who's representing Shedeur? Otis still has that. Guess who represents Kaidon Salter?
Same.
So, I mean, context clues are key here. You know, people in the media, what fans don't realize is that people in the media, they get texts from agent firms. Hey, my guy's going in the portal, or my guy just signed here, and that's how all this news gets broken. So, I mean, they're going to continue to go down that well as much as they can here as well. Joe, another team here is Ole Miss. I guess when I look at Ole Miss, they did it last year. They brought in a lot of big-time players from the portal. Obviously, that helped them on the defensive side of the football. And now they're doing it again. Okay, they're going through the portal, but this time the philosophy is the same. The product of what they're bringing in is different. They're going after running back. They're going after offensive line. They are still going after defensive players. But at the current moment, Ole Miss sits at number 1 in the transfer portal rankings.
I find it a little funny that they just had Princely Umamielen, and they're bringing
now they got Prince Will, baby.
Prince Will Umamielen, who is also extremely gifted. That was a great get to pull him away from Nebraska. I think that's one to track. He was very, very highly regarded. They pulled a lot of Arkansas guys, a lot of highly graded Arkansas guys, which is also funny as well. My only thing here with Ole Miss,
here we go,
is they just did this and they lost to Kentucky. So like I just sit here and I think to myself, you're bringing in a number of highly regarded portal guys, a bunch of guys who were 4 stars in the portal grouping. Can you actually hit that next stride on the field? Can you actually bring it to fruition? What was the issue for them and why they couldn't get the job done?
Offense. Couldn't run the football.
But it's a lot of it had to do with not just them not having
football in crucial moments. I mean,
they weren't having success, but they were directly avoiding running the football and weren't even attempting to do it in the games that they played their worst ball against Florida and Kentucky. So I say this to say, is like, when the hell is Lane Kiffin actually going to finish? He's going to have the athletes. He's going to have the roster. I just question if it means anything. I mean, they're going to be a 2-loss team, and they'll probably get bounced in the first round of the playoff this upcoming year.
Well, look, here's the thing that I would say. I see your argument, agree with your argument, counteract. Look at some of the guys that they're bringing in. Now, they're still going after a portal quarterback. They brought a lot in. Who knows if they land one or want to go after one, okay? But the truth of the matter is they're bringing in interior offensive linemen. They're bringing in running backs. The Logan Diggs comes back now, and he's going to be fully healthy. So, Joe, there comes a part where I think that they learn from their mistakes. I don't know if they're going to be as good in the interior defensively as they were a year ago, right? Like, I don't know if you can replace a Pooh Paul, But what I do know is that I think that they can be more balanced. And to be frank with you, Ole Miss has never had this type of success. Like, regardless of what we think, I think the missing piece to your point is that they're not recruiting high school level high enough to sustain. But there also comes a part where, Joe, I mean, we're if they win a bowl game, we're talking about 3 straight years of 10 wins for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. That is pure insanity.
Well, wait. Okay, hold on one second. I know that you're what you're saying here is like, yes, that's an accomplishment, but I feel like a lot of times we put Lane Kiffin into this bucket that he's like a top coach.
I don't know.
I'm not saying people. You are.
I am one of those people. I think he is one of the top coaches.
He had and spent so much money and had one of the best portal classes last year.
But it was all defense, and they hit on that.
I get that, but at a certain point, you got to be able to get the most out of your team. There were no team this year was perfectly balanced. So
no team in the SEC outside of Oklahoma had more injuries on offense than them either. I'm willing to give them. I'm just going to be real with you. I'm willing to give them grace.
That's it for. I mean, that's it for. Like, I just feel like we keep making excuses for Lane Kiffin. That's my problem with it.
Here's where I think that you are. Where I think that you are is that you want Lane to take that next step. Where I agree with you, I'm willing to give him a longer leash considering the place that he's at. I remember being a person, a human being, a kid growing up. And for 20 years of them being dog piss. Joe, there's never going to be a history. If they win this bowl game, never a run ever in the modern day of college football has a coach gone to a place like Ole Miss and sustained 10 wins like this. Like, let me give you an example. The only places and teams that have done stuff like this have been where? LSU, Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon. Like, it's not happening anywhere else. It legitimately isn't. Now, if they win a bowl game, the other team that you have to now throw in there is Ole Miss. So I understand what you're saying. They underperformed to the standard of what we perceived them to be because we perceived them to be a playoff team. They fell short. I'm not excusing that. But let me just tell you this. USC we're about to talk about. And I guarantee you if Lane was at USC right now with the money that he can get for the portal and the high school recruiting hotbed that he has, he would dominate USC. He would destroy every single living thing and creature with the experience that he had. Joe, they had one player that he didn't get in Deuce Knight, okay? They don't have premier top talent in the state of Mississippi. So they got to be innovative. It's just the truth.
Okay.
Either they got to recruit nationally or they got to be innovative. And I get what you're saying. I'm just not there with them yet, man. They're going to do it again.
I understand bringing up the context of him being in a school that typically is not successful. Like that's fine. Like that's important to discuss here because they have not consistently been – actually consistently is not even the right word. They've been consistently bad for a very long time. But when we remove that scope for a second here and we just acknowledge the amount of talent that he had on the roster, the quality of the roster that he had, instead of taking into account the history, let's talk about the right now.
Okay.
He had one of the most gifted rosters in the country, and he couldn't beat Kentucky. We're not talking about, if this was a season where we were talking about them losing to Georgia, say that was one of the, say they lost to Georgia, LSU, and they lost to the top teams on their schedule, and they had 3 losses, and it was just like, damn, they just couldn't get past the top teams that they were facing this year. They had 2 clunker games against teams that they were supposed to beat, that they were supposed to be so much more gifted and talented than. That's where I come in here with Lane, is that I don't mind giving him credit for accomplishing what he is, which is being a good coach, but I can't get behind him being great and assuming that if he was at a stop that had a ton more resources, if he was back at USC, that he would bring them to new heights and to a higher level. I feel
back to their normal heights.
Right.
Tomato in this sense, okay? Tomato in the sense of I'm with you. I understand it. But man, I mean, like, I don't want to go here, and I'm not going to. It'd be too petty. But there have been teams, and there are teams in the playoff that don't deserve to be in the playoff more than them.
Okay.
I get the Kentucky loss.
Can I take us to some breaking news?
Yeah, John Mateer.
Yeah, you want to go there next?
I was going to go to LSU and then the portal ads. Do you want to get to the last one here and then go to portal ads?
What do you mean by portal ads?
Salter, Mensah, Singleton, and Mateer.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Very bad podcasting. All right. Well,
no, this is good podcasting. We're breaking the fourth wall. People are listening to us plan mid-show.
I guess so. Last team here in the okay, we can go to John Mateer.
No. Go to LSU. Let's talk LSU because you're right.
So
that makes more
the
sense.
last positive before we get to USC, ironically, is LSU. LSU being number 2 on the portal list. We talked about this on Monday, but your thoughts?
I mentioned how it was super significant that they were able to bring in Mansour DeLeone with the inconsistencies that they had in their secondary. He is a guy that is going to be a top 50 pick, just to reiterate my point, in the 2026 draft. But the way that they have rounded out with so many more additions, after the first few days, it was a lot of depth. It was a lot of guys that aren't going to be super highly ridiculously impactful. Like Bauer Sharp is a good player. He's not going to go for 800 yards and anything crazy like that. He's going to block well. He'll just show an impact there. But for them to grab Nick Anderson and also in this recruiting class have Berrien Brown to reshape your receiving room after losing CJ Daniels that didn't really contribute as much as people were hoping that he would, to add 2 premier guys that were impactful receivers in the SEC that are great athletes, that's huge. Garrett Nussmeier needs to take advantage of having these guys and to connect with them more consistently, and hopefully they run the ball more and they don't just completely abandon running the football. But their passing arsenal is great, and their reshaping of their defense is also great. I just kind of wonder, is there a big defensive tackle that they can get? Because it feels like they've swung and missed a little bit there. That's my only thing.
I think they're not done yet.
All right.
I think that one's on the way. I think that one's on the way.
All right, I'll trust you on that one.
Oh, you better. There are still question marks about LSU that I have. Offensive line, Tyree Adams and Weston Davis arguably are going to be the guys that are rotating in at right tackle. Emory Jones and Will Campbell are out. Joe's the 5th time in LSU history that somebody's been an All-American in all 4 polls. Will Campbell is the 5th of that. You want to know the 2 recent ones? Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. That's the class that he's keeping at the current moment. What do you do at left tackle? Like, can you sustain with a non-mobile quarterback? And those are question marks that I have about LSU here. Is Garrett going to run like he did against Oklahoma? Joe, let's just be real for a minute. Let's go pop in the Oklahoma film when he got hurt. Okay, and then let's fast forward to what happened right after. If you're going to put your shoulder down on Danny Stutzman, I'm with me now, dog. I got you now. All right, you learning? I can be critical of you. All right. Now let's go get it. Because I do think that Brian Kelly, for what it's worth, Joe, I've been hearing one word coming around LSU at the current moment: legacy. And Brian Kelly challenged the fan base of LSU 2 weeks ago. Hey, you want to be elite again? This is the way of the world. We got to get this collective rolling. I have been a part of it. Joe knows something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago. This place responded. If LSU can go into college baseball in Omaha, Nebraska, and buy 88,000 Jell-O shots, you think they're not going to give you money to be elite? They ain't done yet. And I saw our good friend Josh Pate take a lot of shit last night. And everything he said was spot on about how they're doing stuff, about how they're directing stuff. The reason he's one of the biggest names in college football media is because he knows stuff like that. It is intricate details of how things are going. But the truth is, Joe, it's been a philosophy shift. And here's another thing. Either Brian Kelly's going to go for it all and he's going to go for broke here, or he's going to fail at it, because here's the real truth. I saw a guy that doesn't like getting involved in play calling. Shit start going down, I'm going to get involved. There's a big legacy play here for him, Joe. I don't care what anybody tells me. Knowing what I know, talking to the people that I talk to on a daily basis about LSU, it's legacy now for him. Look, you can say whatever you want about him. I know this for a fact. The man wants to go win a national title. I mean, he's been in college football for 35 years, or around 35 years. He wants to go win one. That's what they're trying to accomplish. They still got holes at safety. I don't know what their O-line's going to look like. Hell, I got to be real with you, though. There are some pieces that I have not seen LSU depth like this. I'm going to just tell you the truth. Defensively, since 2019. Actually, I know that it hasn't been that level of depth defensively since 2019. How do they react to this? I think defensive pieces that they're going to be adding are big. Mansour DeLeone, Joe, does he play safety or does he play corner? Okay, well, we just brought in a 5-star corner here. He's going to play. The number one corner on the board in DJ Pickett. Does he play? Oh, well, now you got 2 third-year starters that are returning. What do you do at safety? So a lot of experience that's coming back here. Can they get over the hump in these big games? Can you win game 1 on the road against Clemson? It's a big deal to me. So, but by the way, they're one of only 2 SEC teams that don't have back-to-back road games either. As ironic as it sounds, their schedule got a little bit easier, in my humble opinion. So there's a lot of things. I love Jack Pyburn. Jack Pyburn had 60 tackles in 8 games. LSU ain't had an edge rusher that could get 60 tackles in 24 games under Brian Kelly. Spare me. And by the way, that last 5 of the last 8 games that he started were against all ranked opponents. Again, I'm with you. I'm going on a tangent, but it's just a trip.
How do you feel about his
sack production?
No. His like alleged list of demands that he had.
Not true.
Okay.
Hey, how about this one? Sources. Not true.
All right, I'll try. I trust your judgment more than I trust Twitter screenshots.
If that is the truth, then LSU.
I mean, insane.
Then LSU got a massive bargain on what I know.
Insane. If that is, it's obviously not.
It didn't happen.
Okay,
it didn't happen. All right. So last one here before we get to some of these players in the portal and then get to picks. Joe, USC. All right, I'm gonna say something that I don't normally say. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. I don't like calling places dumpster fires. They're hinging on dumpster fire worthy.
No, they are dumpster fire worthy, and it needs to be talked about, Blake. This needs to be talked about.
They're in trouble, bud. They're in trouble.
It all comes down to the fact of them losing their 2 most premier recruits from, I believe it was the 2023 class. Deuce Robinson. Say it again.
All the 5 stars that Lincoln's recruited are gone.
Deuce Robinson and Zachariah Branch, who were budding stars in the sport, that had some big performances this year, but were not as impactfully utilized as they could have been. The fact that those guys are leaving, and Kyron Hudson, is a freaking problem. You're an offensive-minded coach, a coach that is supposed to produce highly impactful receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. And those guys want out. They want to leave. This is a dumpster fire. It has to be framed that way. This is a problem. Lincoln Riley can't keep his own damn recruiting, his own roster. He can't recruit the damn state of California. The floor is falling out. I don't care if USC fans think I have some sort of bias against them. I have called bullshit since the beginning, since they went to the Pac-12 championship game and they got their asses kicked. None of this has added up. He's not a good recruiter. He's not a good leader of men. He lived off of his offense being hot for a couple of years, and then everyone freaking figured it out. This is not going to get better. This is only going to get worse. They have a mediocre roster in the Big Ten right now. Who's their best player? Like, legitimately, I have no idea.
Lemon.
We have no idea if he sticks around or not either.
Yeah, man, it's bad, brother. It's really bad. Listen, even more than the portal departures, not holding on to your top talent, not being able to pay to keep your top talent.
Yeah.
The buy-in not being there, quite honestly, is so far. Joe, USC's on a downward spiral. They had a big year one, got a lot of guys in the portal. There was a lot of excitement, and then they flustered. Man, I don't know where they go from here because he can't recruit in state. He's getting dominated in state. And Joe, I just feel like if the right guy gets that job, the right human being gets that job, all bets are off.
Yes.
All bets are off about what happens at USC, because here's the truth. Joe, if I would have told you during the Pete Carroll days that today's world of football would exist, what would you think about what USC would be able to do?
I would have told you. The same thing applies for Miami. The market that they're in, I would have said that they should be a top 5 team.
Well, no, that's a fantastic comparison. What is Miami doing to go 10-2? They're being Miami. Okay, they didn't make a playoff. Okay. They're being Miami. They're going out and spending money. I mean, that's what they're doing. That's how they're getting top premier talent. And then they're paying money to keep them there. Joe, he doesn't have buy-in. He doesn't want to have those conversations. He is built for a different league. And there's a great thing about this. The league is the NFL. You don't have to do any of that. You only have to coach and develop. That's it. And he's great at that. You can't have 3 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks if you can't develop. Sorry. It's not existent. We saw Jalen Hurts develop. That is the biggest thing that we've seen. Again, as a university and as a team, man, I had a lot of high hopes for the dude. I really did, because I thought he could go in there and recruit and be not great but moderate, land some of the top couple guys. Joe, they got a couple of 5-stars. I don't know if their quarterback stays. I don't know if Jakeem Stewart stays. Like it's a big deal and it stinks for them because that place could be so much special than what it is.
I don't frankly care if it's special or not. And I live in the belief that I think in the current era, I don't think that USC can be as successful as people think it can be. That city, and having lived there for 3 years, it is loaded with distractions for young men. They need to be in environments where they can develop and mature and improve. And instead, you're going to a school where you're surrounded by, frankly, a bunch of kids where the vast majority are there, all seemingly off of handouts. It's in a city where you and I are from parts of the country where we had to bust our asses.
We're blue collar, lunch pill.
To get ahead, you had to bust your ass, and then we both went on to play football. I didn't get a sense of that from living in Los Angeles, and I think that it bleeds into the football program here for USC. They need somebody who is a hard-nosed coach that is going to motivate these guys, that is actually going to get on them, to develop them to improve. But that they don't have that. They don't freaking have that, and Lincoln Riley is not that guy. He is too blasé about how he coaches football.
What is blasé? Don't come in here with
casual. They he's not a motivator.
Blasé? Is he blasé?
Yes. That's it for me though on USC. It's pathetic. It is beyond pathetic that this is.
I disagree with you. I think that they have the booster base, and here's the thing: not every kid lives in LA.
What do you mean?
Lock down the state.
That's true.
Kids,
Southern California, Orange County,
kids, or at least when I was a kid. Okay, dudes didn't leave the state. I remember Ed Orgeron saying one time that when other teams would come to the state of California to recruit, the whole staff would be at a football game, seeing them walking in and laughing at them because there was no way that they were losing these kids. No way.
Right.
We're USC. That mentality is not there. And until that mentality gets there, Joe, you can't convince me that they can't recruit and get top talent and coach. It's a top premier program for a reason. The resources are there. They're just not being able to utilize it, which is a damn shame. We do have a super chat really quickly. Texas Tech says Jet Rogers is on a heater. They're spending money, man. Texas Tech is spending money. They're getting after it. They're getting after it. Listen, man, Let me tell you what I think's happening at Texas Tech really quickly before we get to these players.
Mm-hmm.
I think they think, hey man, we got money. We ain't Texas and we ain't Texas A&M, but we got money. We got old money too. We can go out there and go make a playoff.
I mean, they unexpectedly have been
on a heater.
Very, very good. By the way, I think we've got a lot of people hopping here excited about the John Mateer stuff. I think
let's get to that. Let's go to that now. All right. So, Joe, John Mateer has committed to Oklahoma as his offensive coordinator at Washington State is now at Oklahoma. Mateer goes into the portal and follows his OC. Your thoughts?
Yeah, one, for that reason, I think it not least exciting, but probably one of the most expected moves. When you have an offensive coordinator travel, there's always going to be the easy enticement of getting your starting quarterback, especially if he's a good player, to come with him. I watched a little bit of him, of his tape, just to have like a refresher on him and to get an understanding. You know who he kind of reminds me of his impact that he could have? He's not a super huge kid that's physically imposing. He's not a freaky athlete that's going to run a 4.4. He also doesn't have a cannon of an arm, but he's a playmaker. He reminds me a little bit of DeLeone Gabriel, former Oklahoma quarterback, and now obviously at Oregon.
He's more athletic than DeLeone Gabriel.
He is. He's bigger and more athletic than DeLeone Gabriel. But like the way that he plays, where he just finds space and he attacks it when he chooses to scramble. He's impactful as a runner that way. He's able to play very efficiently and consistently with his passing, and he's able to find playmakers downfield. I just love the approach, and him staying in an offense that we knew he was highly successful in is even more promising. So this is great for Oklahoma. I'll go as far as say this. I think this is an upgrade over Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold was extremely underwhelming last year. And to get a guy who played at a high level as he did, this is an upgrade. This is absolutely an upgrade over Arnold.
Okay. All of that is fantastic. Here's the truth. John Mateer can be special. Like, very special. He ran for 826 yards and 15 touchdowns. The dude can move. And you're going to need him to move because that O-line's still going to be shaky. They're going to have to go back in the portal here. And they're going to have to develop and recruit from within. Mm-hmm. It's still going to be shaky. I don't know if it's going to be as bad as it was this year. I don't think it's as bad as it was this year. I think it does get better. I think they'll figure some things out. But the kid's an outright playmaker. And here's the thing. Blaine Crane said this, and I quoted it. I'm going to say it again here. Whoever is recruiting and developing quarterbacks has an eye for quarterbacks. This is Cam Ward and John Mateer. Like, this kid can come in here and play. Here's the issue that I have with you. If he goes 7-5 and still makes big-time plays, it's a big accomplishment. Let me tell you why. Look at Oklahoma's schedule going into next season. The last 5 weeks is a crapshoot. Now, it's way too early to tell. We don't know how all these rosters are going to pan out. Yeah. At the current moment, their schedule is absolutely brutal. It's brutal, okay? This kid is going to have to come in here and do some serious stuff in the SEC with that brutal of a schedule. Can he overcome some of those things, Joe? In a bad O-line, they got to replace their receiving core. Their best receiver is out. Their best receiver is gone. I thought Farouk could play too, and Nick Anderson's now gone. So, look, man, I think the kid can do some good things, and play calling's going to be a massive upgrade. But he's going to have to do some special stuff too. Yeah,
the path for them to be highly successful next year is going to be tough. I think Venables, we forget, did a really strong job in the last recruiting class, doing just bringing in a lot of really good talent. If that talent develops, there is a lot of upside, especially for their offensive line. But that's to be determined. So it's fair to bring up those concerns. And somebody's bringing up Deion Burks coming back. Everybody knows I am a Deion Burks lover. I was
do love him.
Pissed that he got hurt this year and wasn't able to play really. Him returning is super significant. And to actually have a quarterback who knows how to get him the damn ball and an offensive coordinator that is going to scheme him open. Yep. I'm telling y'all right now, and I don't care if anyone wants to pull the receipts on me saying that Deion Burks was going to be a top 5 receiver this past year. He got hurt. That is a BS reason to call me out if anyone tries to do it. I'm telling you right now, though, this is going to be a top 5 duo in college football this upcoming year. They're going to be super freaking productive. Deion Burks is going to have a huge passing totals. But to address what you said, the schedule is very difficult. To get Michigan at home early, and then in this final stretch of going to South Carolina, we don't know what South Carolina looks like next year for sure, but they're going to be really good because they're
they got
young.
3 guys from the portal, just throwing that out there.
They have to go to Tennessee, they have to go to Tuscaloosa, and then they get Missouri and LSU at home. So there are a lot of brutal road situations that they're stepping in.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting the advantage of kind of like what they had this past year, where they got to host Alabama, where you get to host all of the tough teams on your schedule. So it's just something to pay attention to, that it's not an easy path.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I know that his head coach came out on Monday. I think John Mateer is special. I want to make that clear. I think John Mateer is special. Where do you want him to lead you? Because I still see holes in that team. But in reference to him specifically, he's got the 3/4 slot arm action. He looks like he's
got such a goofy throw in motion that I'm like, why? But it works. I mean, it works.
I mean, brother, I'll say this to everybody. Throwing motion means nothing to me when you're deadly accurate when I've seen Phillip Rivers.
Okay, here's the only word.
Deadly accurate, I don't care.
In college, yes, I agree with you. In college, it doesn't matter as much because like where those mechanical issues are going to get accentuated. It's like shooting the basketball in college versus
I don't care about the NFL.
Same thing.
I'm not, my mind doesn't even go there.
Good athletes will prevail. That's the takeaway.
Well, his head coach said that he's probably going to be the best player in the country next year. And I got to agree with him. I think that he has that potential. How
does the team play though? That's the biggest.
That's the biggest thing that I was going to get to there. Here's the thing. You know, he could have, hear me out. He could have a Cam Ward, maybe Jaden Daniels-ish.
Okay, wait. Okay, we're getting a little too far. That's a little too spicy for me.
No, I'm not, because impact is different than the player. The impact
You're just talking about on-field play. We're not talking about like draft projection.
No,
because those guys are unreal.
Well, no, correct. Because listen, here's the truth: they couldn't run the football. They couldn't. He's a better overall athlete than we saw from Jackson Arnold. The thing is, too, he's going to be under pressure a lot. Right? So he's going to be able to move. The impact is different when you have a struggling O-line. Impact and player are two different things for me, but just because you have an inexperienced offensive line, you have a quarterback that can move. That's the reason I put Cam and Jaden in there, because, listen, their O-lines early sucked, and they had to run the football. That's the bottom. Mateer's going to have to do that. I don't care what anybody's going to tell me. Until you get a better O-line, Joe, Rudy Poo. All right, we're getting close here. All right, some other we talked about Kaidon Salter earlier. Do you want to talk about Singleton and potentially Auburn here?
Well, we got to give our game picks. So do you want to just close out with game picks?
We can do that. Okay, we can do that. But because Singleton technically isn't committed yet, so we can do that. All right. Yeah. Playoff picks round 1 here, Joe. There is an outstanding lead here. Oh,
I pulled it a little bit on your. Obviously, there's not enough time for me to close this thing out.
You can't catch up.
But I kicked your ass in G5 conference games 2 weeks ago. You suck that.
Yeah. Screw the G5. Penn State versus SMU. Both of us going with the Nittany Lions here, Joe.
I do not see a world where SMU is going to be able to have organized offense consistently in this game. We saw that their offensive line was completely overwhelmed throughout the entirety of it. They were immediately seeing pressures every single time that Kevin Jennings dropped back. Abdul Carter is going to have a field day. And then the other thing that you brought up during this preview is that I really think that Penn State, even though they don't rely on their passing game often, is going to have a field day. They are going to have a huge day. The line right now on this is on Bet Online is 8.5, I believe. I'm pulling it up right now.
Take it.
Go bet on that. Bet on Penn State to cover. They're going to kick the shit out of them. Anyone who wants to bring up, well, James Franklin doesn't do well against top-ranked teams. This is not a top 5 Ohio State or Michigan team. This is the 11 seed SMU team that barely got into the playoff. They're going to kick the shit out of them.
Everybody outside of Ohio State, Oregon, maybe Michigan What was his record? We pulled it up that time. Remember, it was like 90.
Yeah, it's against all of those teams specifically. This is the type of game that James Franklin is going to roll, and they're going to blow him out.
Well, he was winning 95% of games not without those teams, right? It's not like he was losing astronomical to other bad, like below teams.
Yeah.
I'll say this, though. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm with you, but if Jennings runs and goes off, it's going to be interesting to see how they contain that. It's one thing to prepare for it. It's another thing to see his speed on the field now. Just telling you.
Right.
I'm just telling you, anytime you got a quarterback that can move like that, well, Notre Dame and Indiana, both of us going with the Irish.
The line on BetOnline for this game is -7. Notre Dame covering that spread. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Indiana doesn't cover that number. I think this game is going to be super low scoring, snowy, potentially really cold weather. Both teams are going to try and run the football. But where Notre Dame has the edge and where their edge should prevail, and it was why they lost the way that they did to Ohio State. The team with the better athletes is going to win in this situation. Indiana's really well coached. They're feisty. But when it comes down to the fourth quarter, the team that has the 4-star and 5-star athletes on it is going to outlast the opponent. A team of mostly G5 come-ups that have all played phenomenal. I'm not disrespecting them. They've all played fantastic football this year. But they are just not on that same plane as Notre Dame, that Notre Dame should be able to finish this thing out.
You called me while I was pouring water and
oh, sorry,
and had myself on mute here. I'm with you. I just still think, and this is going to have to happen because you said that you would take Indiana to cover. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, then if that's what you believe, there's going to be critical moments where Riley's got to throw the football and he's not able to complete it. Is that fair?
Not completely.
If you're saying it's inside of, okay, you mean to tell me that they're covering the spread? That means that they're driving down the field to go and score late at the end of the game, and and Notre Dame makes a stop. You're
yes.
literally putting it that close. So then that would mean that Notre Dame is unable to move the football in moments.
No, actually, I think that realistically what's going to probably happen is that Notre Dame's going to try and control time of possession. They're going to run the ball like they do. And Indiana scraps their way back a little bit towards the end. And that's how they end up backdoor covering. This feels like it has a backdoor cover written all over it. I don't think it's going to be duke you out, punch for punch, blow for blow type of a game.
I'm answering Cody.
The Ricky Collins.
Well, it's not a national newsworthy thing. So yeah, I mean, I could see that. I'm with you. All right, Clemson and Texas, both of us going with the Longhorns.
Another game that I think is going to be a blowout. Texas to cover the 12. The biggest thing on BetOnline, the biggest thing for me is the trenches. I do not think that Clemson's offensive line is going to be able to hold up against this pass rush for Texas. This is the definition of a game that Sark is going to kick the crap out of a lesser opponent. I'm a little wary because playoff Dabo is real. Playoff Dabo is very real, but I'm sticking with Texas here to cover the 12 and for them to win.
I'm telling you, now they might get blown out, and so playoff Dabo might not be here. However, the first year they got to a national championship, a lot of people thought that they couldn't do it, and they kept getting to a playoff. He was upsetting teams he wasn't supposed to beat. Alabama. The bottom line is, I'm really interested to see how Texas responds, and then a Clemson team that has new life. The reason I'm not so bullish on Texas right now is because, number one, I've seen you play down to the level of Vandy. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen you be in a situation.
It's regular season, though, so it's fair. It's a fair point to bring up.
Okay. Last postseason.
Well, they almost came back.
Almost and coming back are two different things. Their secondary got torched, and I got to be real with you. Klubnik can sling it better than most quarterbacks that he's seen all year. There, I said it. And so I know that you're one of the top passing defenses in the country. No, I saw Gunnar Stockton go 12 of 17 on you too. Joe, they haven't truly outside of Georgia been tested. And Georgia's style of football is not what they're going to see here. I'm picking Texas to win. But look, brother, they're not the SEC. If you remember, I said, look, if they lose, they're 10-2 in the regular season. They're out. Like they haven't shown anything. Quinn Ewers is a big thing for me here. Quinn scares the shit out of me in every game that they go into because I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, he's got to play good ball.
Got to, man. I mean, this is the playoffs. He played bad ball last year.
Wait a minute. Are some of these games on TNT?
Yes.
What the fuck? Since when? How am I just finding this out now?
Well, you should have known this. We talked about this when Dellinger reported. Okay, we don't have time for this.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
But basically when Dellinger said the thing about the compensation on TV rights and all that, and they had to be flipped. Yeah, y'all's game. I think y'all's game's on TNT, right? Or Penn State.
No, that one's on ABC. The Penn State.
I saw that ESPN. This is the first time ESPN's airing a Notre Dame game specifically at home since like 1983.
Yeah, that hasn't been on NBC. By the way, you want to know the funniest part about all this? I'm looking at it. I know that we got to get to the last game, but the FCS playoffs are on ABC, and the Penn State SMU game, which is at the same time, is going to be on TNT. That's ridiculous.
I mean, it's not like if we don't want to watch it, that we're not going to go find it and watch it.
No, I know, but like if we're talking about like order of operations and of most importance, let's hit this last game before we wrap up here.
All right. We can do that. Ohio State and Tennessee. Joe, I am going with the upset here, and I am taking the Tennessee Volunteers. You were taking Ohio State.
I think Ohio State's going to prevail in a close game at home. I think that their pass rush is going to be a little too much for Nico to handle. That secondary is going to be a little too much for him to handle. But I do believe that they're going to cover the 7.5. This is one of my best bets of the weekend on Bet Online, 7.5. I think that Tennessee will cover here because their defensive line is so freaking good going up against that really messy Ohio State offensive line that's banged up at the current moment. That has a ripe situation for this to be a 3-point win for Ohio State late. At Neyland North, by the way. And Neyland North.
At Neyland North. Joe, I'm going with the upset for one big thing here. You ready? I think that Ohio State's biggest weaknesses are Tennessee's biggest strengths. I do. I think they're going to go in there, and it's going to be overwhelming of how much orange is in there, and I think they're going to go in there and win. I'm telling you, man, they're not going to be able to run the ball on them. It's going to be a problem. All right, we'll see. And I played into everybody calling me an SEC homer all week, so there you go. I played into you, so I'm going to go with the Volunteers. Okay, till Sunday or Friday after games.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some short reactions after the games, and then of course we have our usual Sunday show.
Okay, see y'all then. Y'all have a good one. Peace.